Welcome to another episode of the PreProduction Company podcast. I'm joined by Daniel O'Hara, who directed blocks 1 and 3 of The Stranger, and we're going to talk about all things directing. So Daniel, how did you get started with directing? What's been your kind of career path?
Well, I guess I got into the industry early, doing work experience really and stuff like that with Zig and Zag, which some people might remember from The Big Breakfast. Got involved with their production company and worked my way up. Taught myself how to use a DV camera and got work initially shooting DV camera, and then in Dublin in sort of magazine shows and stuff on TV, like a football show and a travel show and stuff. This sort of notion of the DV director came about where you're shooting and directing at the same time. So the first actual directing job I got was doing the inserts for a Sunday night game show on RTE called It's a Family Affair, which was hosted by Dara O'Brien.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Which I don't think he remembers particularly fondly, but so that was sort of the first directing. Then got into sort of magazine TV, and at the same time as that, I was writing scripts for short films and trying to get those made. Eventually did a couple of short films that did well and won a few awards, and that led to getting a break directing sort of episodes of TV drama.
So would you say doing short films is a really good way to kind of say, look, I want to be a director, here's my calling card almost?
Definitely. I think you can say you want to direct something, but no one's ever going to give you something to direct if you've not done it before, and that's the challenge. So, you either have to make friends with the writer or write something yourself.
Yeah.
And I think now the technology is there. It's so easy for people. You can shoot stuff on a phone. You can cut on your computer. You can stick it on YouTube. I think it's so easy now for people to pull together the resources to actually, come up with a finished product. And it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It's all a learning experience. But you learn so much by just doing it.
Yeah, because I think I think some people have a misconception that to become a director, you do third AD, second AD, first AD, and then become a director. But would you say more so directing smaller scale content is a better way? Yeah,
well, both. I think experience of the industry at work is very valuable. I didn't actually work on, big sort of drama or film sets before I sort of was directing on them. So that's, in a way you come into it and you don't necessarily know a whole lot about the etiquette and about how things work, but you get the chance to shadow people or whatever. But so I think I don't think there's any single sort of career path as such to direct, and I think it's something that if you want to do it, you got to just do it.
Yes.
All of those different things, working in different departments is, it's all valuable, valuable experience. You're getting on set, you're opening your eyes, you're working with good people, learning from them. So being a third or second or first or whatever is all good, and people have gone that way to directing, but I think it's just sucking up that knowledge as much as you can and the experience, and then but just doing it.
Mm-hmm. So I remember you were talking on set with someone that was doing work experience, shadowing you, about the balance between kind of the technical aspect of directing and the more creative, dealing with actors and then dealing with camera crew and lighting and everything.
Yeah.
How do you think you get that balance right? Because I think some people say, oh no, I am a director that just deals with actors, or oh no, I'm a director that just deals with kind of the technical side. Yeah,
well, I think honestly, I think to say I'm a director who just deals with actors, or I'm a director who just deals with visuals, whatever. I think that limits what you can do. Definitely, I think the job is across both. I think it's kind of it's like the whole industry. It's a business based on sort of artistic or creative sort of endeavour, and those two don't always go together. And the challenge with I guess with directing is you want to sort of help create an environment where your creative people, whether that's your your cameraman or your designer or your actors or whatever, can come up with great ideas, and where you can come up with great ideas and create a relaxed sort of environment where nobody feels under pressure. Not nobody feels under pressure, but where people feel that freedom to sort of have those ideas and to be creative. The challenge is then that you're under a lot of pressure, and you've got to do this amount of scenes today, and you've got to do this many pages today, and you've got this much time to do this, and we've got to be out at this location at 12 o'clock, and you've got to, you know, we're losing the light, and what are you going to do? And you go, well, you wanted to do 5 shots for this scene, but we're only going to get 2, so which 2 shots are you going to do?
Yeah.
So it's a non-stop sort of juggling act of being creative and being practical, and they just go hand in hand. And I think, you know, certainly you get better at that with experience and about knowing what battles to pick and what things to prioritize and when to sort of when to stick to your guns and no, we absolutely got to do it this way, or when to go, okay, well, we need to maybe be a bit flexible in order to achieve this. As I say, it comes with experience, but a huge part of it is your prep.
Yeah, which is what I wanted to go on to. The importance of pre-production. I think especially for students, it's a step that gets massively missed out. We'll turn up a location, which, you know, might be a friend's house or something, and we'll go, cool, we kind of want a 2-shot and a couple of singles, and it'll be a bit of a thrown together experience. But so what would you say, how important is pre-production, and what are the kind of processes you need to go through in pre-production?
Well, you know, obviously you're starting with a script, and you start or sometimes you'll be involved before that, you know. There's a great example on The Stranger, actually, that for one of the later episodes, Danny Brocklehurst said, he says, I want to do a foot chase. So, you know, we just started talking about locations that might be good, and he was gonna have a little bit of a wander around, you know, an area that he had in mind. But then we spoke to Mark O'Hanlon, the location manager, saying, Danny wants a foot chase. Any cool locations off the top of your head, or whatever. And this amazing location, which you'll see at the sort of in the pre-titles bit of episode 7, sort of where that chase finishes up, and that came from you know, an open creative conversation between the writer, director, location manager. So that's an example of being involved even before the script or contributing to the script. But you have the script, you got to start thinking practically about how you're going to achieve it, and that, you know, that comes down to everything, you know, day, night, you know, are there stunts involved? How many actors are involved? A lot of the prep time for a director is spent driving around with the location manager, finding locations, and the different sort of stages of that is, you know, obviously they'll show you pictures of, say, you know, 5 or 6 different options. You might go, or 10 different options. You go, well, let's go see these couple, and you go see those, and then you decide on the one that's best. But then what you want to do is spend the time with the production designer, thinking about how you would, you know, make it work for your story. Then you want to walk it with your, you know, your DP, your cinematographer, and think about where you're going to put the camera and you know, what you're going to do. And really what you're doing is eliminating all the things that you can in terms of being taken by surprise on the day. You know, your shooting time is limited, and that's the reason why as much conversation as you can have beforehand, you should do. So if you can stand on a location with your cameraman and say, what if we put the camera here and it was on a dolly or a crane or whatever, and he might say, well, if we just put it there instead, that would mean we could do this, or it would look good from this. And it means when you turn up on the day, he knows what to do. He talks to his team. You know, you're up and running. You have an idea what to do. And for all the prep, and particularly then something like, you know, again, we had quite a few stunt set pieces on this, and those need to be planned really well, obviously in terms of safety, but also in terms of being able to achieve them well, you know, and talk to a stunt coordinator about, here's what we want to do, here's what we want to achieve, and then the stunt coordinator will talk about the best way to achieve that, or you know, well, given the time that you have, maybe you should think about this and this. And for example, a couple of big fight sequences that we had in the last block of the last couple of episodes of The Stranger, you know, we spent time rehearsing, both got the stunt coordinator some time at the location with stunt doubles to, you know, we worked together to design the shape of fights or sequences or whatever. And then the actors would then have time, once that'd been worked out with stunt doubles, and we'd sort of, I guess the process, I'd go with the stunt coordinator, talk about what I wanted to do. He'd then go with the stunt doubles, work it through, video some of that, show it to me, or I could go along, and then work that through with the actors.
Yeah.
Obviously, they maybe save it a bit more for the day, but yeah, again, you're just eliminating the things that could go wrong, or the things that just eliminating wasting time talking about stuff when you can make those decisions in advance. And the other key thing about all that actually is the communication and making sure that your crew know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And again, talking about prep, that could be storyboards depending on the sequence. It could be a shot list. It could be, could be simpler than that. But that goes all the way back to color palette and things like that. Again, on the Stranger, production designer Debbie Burton and costume designer Sharon Gillum very much, in communication together. Talking about the color palette that we wanted for this and the world that we set up, and that's, you can see it. What that does, again, your prep is sort of fueling your storytelling, and if we're consistent about all that, then it's supporting the storytelling that's on screen.
And that's the key thing, is the storytelling. Ultimately. I remember I went to the Stranger's Lair. And that was such an amazing set. It looks really kind of spot on. So you did talk quite a bit about locations. Is that something that's really, really key in all of this? And also not necessarily being stuck to the idea that the front of the house has to be the interior of the house, and
there's it's actually that was finding Adam's house was quite tricky, really, because we had we had an idea of what we wanted, and we wanted it. We decided we wanted sort of period house, but that had been modernised. That was sort of just to show the sort of the affluence and the taste as well. But then there's so much interaction with the Tripp family, whether they were next door or across the street or whatever, and there's lots of comings and goings at the front of the house. So the balance, and we looked at a few things, and there was one stage where we talked about possibly having a different exterior to interior, but we decided there was too much sort of threshold action really, and coming and going. We wanted to find the one house that would do everything. So we did in the end. But that that was a pretty extensive search of fancy houses in Manchester. But I think the location is so vital, and obviously your production design comes in on top of that, to sort of shape it into exactly the sort of look that you want. But you're just always trying to find interesting things. If it's a scene in a cafe, what's the most visually interesting cafe you can find, and the same applies to whatever it is, a park, a school, whatever. You're always looking for something that's visually sort of interesting. So I think locations is a huge part of it. I guess it sort of goes hand in hand with the production design. But definitely a key department.
So you've done mixtures of shooting whole shows, doing blocks of shows, and just single episodes, haven't you? What would you say are the differences between all of those? So if you're for example just shooting one episode of an 8-episode series, do you find yourself, you kind of go in, do the job, get out, and have a lot less sort of say over the whole overarching feel? Or compared to doing, being the lead director on a show?
Well, I think it is different. But I think if you're coming into a show and doing a couple episodes in the middle or whatever, I think you have to respect what's been set up. You of course you want to come in and put your style on it and do it your way and put your stamp on it. But it would be sort of silly to think that you would throw it all out. I mean, why are you doing that show if you don't respect what has been set up? And there is always a freedom within doing episodes. One of the first shows that I did that on was Being Human, and Being Human had been I did the end of the third series, and really there was great freedom to kind of do whatever you want, and the content of that show with vampires and werewolves and ghosts lent itself to that. But there was, even though the show had a style, within that style there was a lot of freedom. I think that's the same across a lot of shows. They want directors to come in and do something. Do something. I mean, that's the reason you're in there, to do something that they've not sort of not seen before, but within the context of that show.
Yeah.
Then and I say that's just a different job, and you gotta, you, as I say, you respect the show or the style that has been set up already. When you're either opening a show or doing a sort of mini-series thing, I think you've got much more. Maybe the role of the director is a bit more similar to on a feature film, where you're bringing, you're setting up the style. What was great on The Stranger was to do the beginning and the end. So, at the beginning, we have the ideas about, obviously involving the casting, first of all, which is such a huge part of any show. Finding locations, setting the look of it, both in terms of those locations and the production design and the costumes, and also then the visual look in terms of camera style and just the overall look. What was particularly nice on this was, it's one thing setting up a show and doing the opening episodes of a show that's designed to run and run.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you set something up, this is what the show looks like, this is the style of it, and it will evolve then over hopefully many seasons.
Yes, yeah.
On a mini-series like this, what was really satisfying about The Stranger was all the things that we set up at the beginning, we could then follow through to the end and sort of finish those sort of things stylistically, finish them off the way we'd set it up. Which was, as I say, in terms of costume, in terms of, even if you look at Adam's character and compare the way he looks at the end, in episode 8 to what he did at the beginning of episode 1, I guess the same for The Stranger to an extent, but that's as I say, the creative satisfaction of seeing it through to the end.
Yeah. Great. So there's more parallels when you're doing a whole mini-series with a film director, and can be a little bit more auteur about it.
Ultimately, it's a collaborative. It's a collaborative thing, and we've there's you've got great people: Nicola, Richard, Harlan, Danny, Madonna, all involved, and we're all in it together.
Yeah.
But yes, in terms of those visual things, you're that's what you're bringing to the table as the director.
Do you have any sort of particular processes that you've put together over years, which you would say, these are my directing practices, and these are things that I swear by, almost like a little toolkit?
I always have a little notebook with me on set, and it's got, what I've got the episodes in, and I got them in scene order, because you shoot out a sequence so much.
Yeah.
I can always look at that and I go, oh, where were we just before this, and where are we going after this? And I think that's quite an important thing for taking a scene and thinking about, even if it's as simple as, this is the first scene of a new day.
Yeah.
So you might want to open that with a particular shot, or it might be, this character just walked out a door, so that may affect how you want them to enter a scene. With actors, sometimes it's, again, shooting out a sequence, they're getting tangled up, and they go, where's the last time you saw me? And you go, oh, well, it was there. So that's really helpful, and I've got little notes for each scene that all through prep I'll, whether that is something sort of, an emotional note for an actor or a character, or whether it's, a specific technical thing, or, it's, remember to, shoot towards the windows first, because it's going to be the end of the day and the light's going to drop. So I've all that stuff, and that's always with me. That's my safety blanket on set. Occasionally you see the fear in my eyes when I've put it down somewhere and can't remember where it is. In prep, I've discovered a great new app.
Okay, yeah.
Which an art director had on a previous job, and that just means you can take notes. You can have your script and you can take notes and stuff on your iPad, which is pretty cool, and you can stick in photographs and everything. So that's an app called Scriptation, which is absolutely brilliant for prep, because it means then when you're looking at your script, you've got all your little notes beside the scene, and you could have little reference pictures and stuff. Actually, I would start with a lot of reference pictures, and I would look at films and TV shows that, you know, or photography or paintings to an extent, but I guess mainly sort of stills from movies that are relevant to the world that you're trying to create and the story you're trying to tell, and sort of feed that in and just get your brain working. And then again, it's talking about balancing the practical and the technical, or also balancing the working with the actors and working with the visuals, because they're two different sides of the creative thing as well. Again, it's about time management. You know, you won't spend a lot of time with all the actors beforehand, but the key actors who've got big parts and got sort of key journeys, if you like. Spend a bit of time speaking to them. Not necessarily rehearsing always. I'm not sure on a TV schedule. I'm not sure if the value of rehearsals, I think, varies. I think it's worth doing a little bit. For example, actually, where I think it's helpful is sort of building relationships that when you arrive on screen are meant to have existed for longer. So on The Stranger, we had some really good time with Adam and the two boys. So Richard and Jacob and Misha had a bit of time together. We did run a couple of scenes, you know, to get everyone into the feel of, you know, the family and the dynamics between them. We did a couple of sort of improvisation things, which was good fun, and the three of them went off, had a day, went bowling for the evening.
So them working as a family.
So that was really valuable. We did something. We did a little bit of time with Richard and Anthony Head, because that was an interesting relationship. So a father-son relationship, but they're kind of estranged. So they needed to have familiarity, but also there's a bit of a frostiness. So again, we sat together. I sat together with them. We didn't rehearse scenes as such, but we certainly talked through the relationship, and so that they both understood where they were going into it. Again, Richard and Sean had a bit of time together beforehand, because they're supposed to have this relationship that, you know, they were pals for years. So that's definitely a big part of the prep stage. That is very difficult actually to get sometimes if you're coming in for a middle block or something else, because they're already shooting and it's hard to get people together. So that's something that's really helpful at the beginning. Cinematographer and the first AD, really get that little triangle, the director, cinematographer, and first AD is really vital in prep as well. That, you know, from the first AD's point of view, that he knows what to expect going into it, and he knows what, you know, this scene may seem like a short scene, but they've got plans to do these elaborate shots, so it's going to take longer. Or this is a long scene, but we're going to do it in steady cam one shot, so it'll take a few rehearsals, but actually it won't take, you know. So and again, it's about the communication. It's about people, you know, it's no use at all being in the director's head, you know. There's a crew of 100 people that all have to know what the plan is. And that, so yeah, I'm going roundabout way. You asked about my processes, but that's I guess that's the two things. That's spending time with the actors, and then that little triangle of the DP and the cinematographer, or the DP and the AD. That's if that's a good triangle, that relationship at the start, then you know your shoot should go well. You know.
So do you think being personable and having really good, strong relationships, is that something that's absolutely vital to keep the whole thing going along?
Yeah, well, you know, I do think we're really lucky to be doing this job, and if you can't have fun doing this, then there's something wrong with it. The relationships is interesting because, and again, it sort of only comes with experience in terms of working with the same people again. It is valuable work, you know, building those relationships and working with the same people again, because. And it's not to say that things will always look the same or feel the same. You can do different styles and different type of things, but it's definitely helpful. Simon Turner, who's first AD on this, I've worked with him quite a bit now, and he actually where I found it really helpful on this show was shot the first block and then went into post. So that I was at the tail end of post episodes 1, 2, and 3 while I was prepping episodes 7 and 8. It was really, really valuable to have a team around me who I completely trusted. So if my prep time was limited, well, I had Peter Robertson, DP, and Simon Turner, AD, who were, you know, we could have a very brief conversation and know what we wanted to do. And then they could crack on and Simon could schedule and that kind of thing. By the same token, Steve Singleton was editing and he was brilliant, and all the post team were great. And by the same token, I could go, right, we've got some notes to do on episode 3. I'm off to recce locations for today. Steve would do the notes and I'd know when I came back it'd be great, and we just talked through a couple of things. So yeah, building those relationships, and again it comes back to the communication that those guys all understand what the intention is and what we're trying to achieve, and we're just all on board the same thing. I think that's an important thing for producers hiring directors as well, that the directors that we all sort of see the show the same way. I think sometimes you hear sort of horror stories where a writer or producers have this show in mind and the director goes off trying to make that show, and it's just, you know, carnage. But I think if up front everyone goes, right, we all see this the same way, great, then everyone can just go and do it, and everybody trusts each other that their you know, their judgment on the thing is
no one's trying to pull it in a direction.
What's the point?
Definitely.
But if you don't, I think, again, talking about going on shows where it's up and running already, I think there's a balance, because you'll want to do it the way you want to do it. So I think, you know what, if you're coming in on a show and it's like it's a job, you go, this is the way they see it, I'll adapt my style and do it that way. That's okay. But really, you'll get more satisfaction out of it doing it the way you want to do it. So that's why you want everyone on the same page.
Because you did some of Doctor Who, didn't you?
Yeah.
How was that? Because that is obviously one of the longest shows.
Doctor Who was
time.
brilliant. Doctor Who was brilliant. It's funny, like, because I think Doctor Who's amazing because you could, you know, one week you could be doing period drama, the next week you could be doing a complete visual effects fest, the next week it could be, you know, a claustrophobic thing all set in the TARDIS. It's just there's literally no limit to what you could be doing on it. I had a great experience in Doctor Who. The shoot was absolutely brilliant. The crew were brilliant. They loved the show. The crew were really proud of the show, and you know, you get to create this world. So I had a 2-part show, and you get to create this world, you know, for this one story. And then where the powers that be weigh in a little bit is in the edit, and Steve Moffat would have kept a close sort of eye on that and on the storyline at that point, and you know, making sure it was doing what a Doctor Who episode needed to do. So yeah, it was interesting actually in terms of that sort of executive producer influence. The shoot, you know, you were really let run free. The edit, then it was like, okay, let's make sure this is a Doctor Who, this fits what we want to do. And then then after that, the sort of, you know, score, grade, mix, visual effects, then the sort of there was more freedom again. So it was a very satisfying experience. It was great. Really enjoyed it.
So you still got to be across the post-production
completely
process.
Absolutely, yeah. I think American shows are different in that way. I think American shows a lot of the time have a showrunner who will oversee all that, and the director goes in, does his episode, does a little bit of an edit, and then the showrunner will see it through to the end. But again, that's just a different way of working. You know, it's fine.
To finish off, have you got any kind of little tips for anyone that wants to be a director?
Be nice.
Be nice.
you know,
that comes up a lot.
Listen, this job should be fun, and there's a lot of people work really hard and work really long hours, you know, and it should be fun. It's a brilliant job, but yeah, I think being open to both sides of it. I think and there's a real balance as well between you got to listen to people, and there's you can always learn or get good ideas from the different creative people around you, but you also have to stay true to the way you see it, and that's a sort of interesting balance as well, because it's not about being a dictator. It's about being clear about your ideas and then getting people to bring their contributions to that. And keeping your vision for it clear in your head, and not compromising on that. There's times where things have to change and adapt, whether that's because whatever, you'll have situations where different people will want to do things different ways, or you'll have things where the rain ruins a scene. So you gotta be ready to sort of think on your feet, and that again is the benefit of the prep, because the prep will help you focus on what's important.
Yeah.
And like I said at the start, if you go, right, you wanted to do 5 shots, you've only got time for 2. You go, well, from my prep, I know that this and this are the key elements of this scene, so I'll make sure I get the close up of the keys.
Yeah.
But then I can do the rest of it in one shot or whatever, But yeah.
So prioritizing the very, very key moments and what,
But again, again, back to the prep, it's the stuff you can have control over. When you're on set with 100 people and time is ticking, you don't have time to be figuring stuff out. You need to figure it out before.
So do you need quite a lot of self-confidence as well then to know that what you're doing is the way to move forward?
And do you know what? Again, that's experience. I think you just gotta trust your instincts. I think if your taste is good, and you gotta trust your instincts. And again, this is where the prep helps you if you don't have experience, because you can remember that you made a decision about something in the cold light of day when you had time and calmness and everything. You made this decision. So be careful before you throw that decision out in the heat of the crazy shoot. But trust your instincts.
Thank you so much for watching the PreProduction Company podcast. It's been absolutely wonderful to have Daniel O'Hara with me. We've got some really great insights from that, and we're going to be having loads more fantastic content coming out soon. Keep watching.